It was a typical morning at Fire Station 12 on the outskirts of Portland, Oregon. Captain Mark Harris and his team were going about their usual routine, checking hoses, refilling oxygen tanks, cleaning the fire trucks. The sky was gray. A light drizzle fell steadily, creating a damp and gloomy atmosphere. No one could have predicted that within the next hour, they would embark on a mission that none of them would ever forget. A lone bark echoed from the open garage bay, bringing the entire crew to a halt. Jake, the youngest firefighter on the team, looked up first. "There's a dog out there," he said, puzzled. All eyes immediately turned toward the sound. A stray dog, soaked and covered in mud, was limping into the bay. Its body was thin, its eyes wide with panic. It no longer barked, just panted heavily. And what shocked everyone most was what it carried in its mouth. A child's shoe, tiny pale pink, soaked in fresh blood. The heel was scuffed, likely belonging to a little girl no older than 10. No one moved, no one spoke. The dog stepped forward a few more paces, then gently placed the shoe on the cold cement floor and backed away, whimpering softly as if pleading. The atmosphere turned heavy. The firefighters collectively held their breath. Mark Harris stepped forward, his eyes never leaving the shoe. In 22 years on the bomb, he had seen his share of horrors, fires, wrecks, even lifeless bodies, but never anything as eerie and heart-wrenching as this. "Jake, get me a pair of gloves," Mark said quietly. As he picked up the shoe with gloved hands, he felt it clearly. The blood was still warm, not dried, not crusted. Fresh, likely just happened. The dog didn't leave. It stood in a corner, its eyes locked onto Mark, not with fear, but something deeper, a silent message. "Some little girl is in danger," Mark whispered mostly to himself. "And this dog knows exactly what's going on." Tommy, the team's driver, spoke up. "You think it wants to lead us?" Mark didn't answer immediately. He knelt, meeting the dog's eyes, soaked but not feral. There was only urgency and desperation. The dog gave a short, sharp bark, almost like confirmation. Mark stood up, voice firm. "Prep 2 trucks. Bring the medical kit. If someone out there needs saving, we're going now." The team sprang into action. They were used to urgent calls, but none like this. There was no 911 dispatch, no address, no contact person. Just a nameless stray carrying a bloodied shoe like a ticket to some unknown destination. As soon as the engine started, the dog bolted from the garage like lightning. It didn't pause or look around, just ran in a specific direction. Despite an injury to its hind leg, it sprinted at remarkable speed, glancing back occasionally to make sure they were following. The tension in the truck was palpable. Mark stared at the road ahead, hands tight on the wheel. In his heart, one thought consumed him. If there's even the slightest chance that a child is still alive out there, we have to take it, whatever it takes. And so the rescue began with a creature abandoned by society, now carrying a burden, bigger than anyone ever asked of it. Mark Harris remained crouched beside the dog, their eyes locked in a strange, almost unspoken connection. No words were exchanged, but deep in his gut, honed from years of saving lives, he knew the creature before him was trying to say something important. It wasn't fear in those eyes, it was a silent scream of desperation and urgency. Mark bent down and picked up the shoe with gloved hands. Blood had soaked through the soft, pale pink fabric. He touched the stain. It was still warm. There was no doubt about it. This was fresh blood. Something terrible had just happened. Someone, likely a child, was in danger and needed help immediately. He stood up, his voice firm and quick, not wanting to waste even a second. "This dog is trying to lead us. Get ready to move. No sirens, no lights. Just follow." Jake and Tommy didn't argue. Even though their minds were spinning with the question, are we really putting our trust in a dog? The look in their captain's eyes told them this was serious. The dog, now temporarily called Buddy by Mark, let out a sharp bark the moment the firefighters boarded the truck. Then he turned and bolted west, still limping, but his pace full of purpose. The light rescue truck followed closely, headlights illuminating Buddy's muddy, rain-soaked silhouette. No one spoke. Inside the cab, there was only the steady swish of the windshield wipers and the hum of tires rolling across the cold, wet road. The tension was thick. This wasn't a routine mission. This was a journey built on instinct. Trust in a dog society had long forgotten. The rain intensified. Buddy weaved through dark, empty streets, glancing back from time to time to ensure the truck was still behind him. His eyes, though unable to speak, were filled with urgency. He was running out of time. Mark felt a tightness in his chest. A strange sensation gripped him, like time had slowed, each second stretching endlessly. It was a feeling he only got when he knew what lay ahead could be the line between life and death. Buddy turned into a narrow alley where streetlights had long stopped working. There were no addresses, no signs, just abandoned houses and overgrown trees swallowing every trace of life. "We can't drive any further," Tommy said, as the road ahead turned to broken concrete. "Possible for the truck to pass." Mark nodded. "Grab the flashlights. Bring the medical kit." "We go on foot." They stepped out into the pouring rain. The cold water soaked through their uniforms, but no one cared. Someone's life was possibly fading in the distance, and Buddy, stray or not, was their only hope of finding it. Buddy led them through a tangled field of tall weeds, then suddenly stopped in front of an old, decrepit warehouse, standing alone in the middle of the overgrowth. The bricks were crumbling, and the wooden door dangled loosely, creaking in the wind like it could fall any second. The windows were covered with rusted bars and broken boards, giving the place a chilling, haunted look. Buddy barked again, this time louder, longer, and insistent. He rushed to the door, pawing at it furiously, then turned and looked back at Mark as if to say, "Hurry, she's inside." Mark stepped forward and signaled to the others, "Be ready. We don't know what's inside, but stay alert." Jake gripped the flashlight tighter. Tommy steadied the med bag. They climbed the rickety wooden steps leading to the entrance, each creaking step echoing into the night. Mark placed a hand on the doorknob, drawing in a deep breath. His heart pounded. He didn't know what he would find beyond that door. But one thing he did know, he believed in that dog. Mark tightened his grip on the door handle, his gloves soaked through with rain. The hinges groaned like a long, suppressed scream. As the rotting wooden door creaked open, a wave of cold air mixed with the stench of mildew and the metallic tang of blood rushed out. The smell of danger, the scent of life slipping away. The team immediately raised their flashlights' beams, piercing the heavy darkness inside. Shards of broken glass were scattered across the concrete floor. Every step echoed sharp and chilling. Inside that desolate space, time seemed to freeze. Then from a hidden corner came a faint, almost imperceptible whimper, barely audible unless one held their breath completely. Jake gasped, "There's someone in there." Flashlights swung toward the sound. Mark spotted a small, trembling hand sticking out from behind a pile of collapsed wooden crates. He rushed forward and dropped to his knees. A blonde-haired girl around 9 or 10 lay curled in the corner. Her body was soaked, her right leg swollen, smeared with blood from her knee down to her ankle. Her eyes were half open, their gaze foggy with fear and exhaustion. The tiny frame shivered uncontrollably in the cold. "Emily," Mark whispered. The name sprang to his mind instantly. He remembered the missing person report from 3 days ago. "Emily Parker." "Oh God, it's her." As Mark leaned closer, Buddy burst in from behind, whining intensely. He circled Emily, licking her hand's tail, wagging wildly. The girl stirred, her lips barely moving. He didn't leave me." Each word fell from her mouth like a dying breath. She reached up weakly, her tiny hand grasping at Buddy's soaked fur, as if that was the one thing anchoring her to life. Mark raised a hand to Jake. "Stabilize her ankle. Tommy, call for an ambulance. Right now she's in shock and losing blood fast." Tommy immediately activated the radio. "Central Station, this is Squad 12. We have a female child approx 9 years old, severe injury to right leg, heavy blood loss, signs of hypothermia. Requesting immediate ambulance to coordinates transmitting. Urgent." Meanwhile, Mark removed his outer jacket and wrapped it around Emily's frail body, kneeling beside her to check her pulse. It was weak, but it was there. He looked at Buddy, the dog lying right next to her, eyes wide, staring up at Mark, almost waiting for approval. Good boy, Buddy. You did it. You really did it. Mark's voice cracked for the first time since the beginning of the mission, overcome with emotion. In the distance, the wail of an approaching ambulance cut through the air. Red and white emergency lights flickered through the shattered windows, casting reflections on Emily's pale face. Moments later, paramedics rushed in. They gently lifted Emily onto a stretcher, but when someone tried to pull Buddy away from her side, she began to sob. No, don't take him. He stayed with me. He saved me. Everyone paused. Firefighters, medics alike struck silent by her plea. Mark stepped forward, placing himself between the dog and animal control. No one's taking this dog anywhere, he said firmly. As long as I'm standing here, he's part of this girl's family. No one argued. They looked at Mark, then at Buddy, and they understood. No human could have done what this nameless stray had accomplished. The ambulance rolled away. Buddy leapt up and lay down beside Emily on the stretcher, refusing to leave her for even a second. The rain kept falling, but this time it no longer felt cold. It became a quiet farewell to a story that began in tragedy, but was illuminated by trust, courage, and a friendship beyond words. The ambulance raced through the downpour. Inside, Emily lay unconscious, wrapped in thermal blankets and hooked up to emergency medical equipment. Her lips were pale, barely able to move, but beside her, Buddy never left. The dog lay tightly against the girl, his head resting on her shoulder, eyes filled with worry, as if even 1 second of letting go would mean losing her forever. The ER. Doctors at Portland City Hospital couldn't believe their eyes when the stretcher came in, with a muddy stray dog accompanying it like a blood relative, but no one stopped him. This dog, soon everyone knew his name was Buddy, had earned the silent respect of the entire fire crew. He was more than allowed, he was owed. As doctors and nurses fought to save the little girl's life outside the emergency room, an extraordinary story began to spread. Mark Harris, still soaked from the rain, sat quietly in the corridor, eyes fixed on Buddy, curled up outside the ER doors. No one dared to touch the dog. Buddy let out soft whimpers, ears perking up at every sound from inside. He's not leaving her side, Mark said softly, almost as if speaking for Buddy. He did what an entire city couldn't do in 3 days. 1 hour later, the door swung open. The lead doctor, face tense and eyes red from emotion, stepped out. She's going to be okay, he said. We got to her in time. Mark nodded slowly, then turned to Buddy. You hear that, kid? She's okay. Buddy didn't bark. He simply shifted closer to the door, nudging his head gently against the wall, as if finally exhaling for the first time since finding her. The next morning, the media got wind of the story. A young nurse, deeply moved after witnessing Emily awaken and called out for Buddy before even asking for her parents, had shared the moment with a local journalist. Within hours, Oregon's major newspapers were ablaze with headlines. Buddy, stray dog, rescues missing girl after 3-day snowstorm. Four-legged hero leads firefighters to a miracle. The hospital grounds were packed with reporters, all wanting to see the dog who defied odds and the girl who returned from the brink of death. But the Parker family refused every interview. They issued only one public statement. Our daughter is alive, thanks to a creature the world once called worthless. That night, after Emily had fully regained consciousness, her parents, Mr. Thomas and Mrs. Sarah Parker, were allowed into the hospital room. But Emily wouldn't let anyone near until she saw Buddy enter. Her voice was barely more than a breath, but it silenced the room. He didn't leave me. Even when I was cold, even when I was hurt, he was there. She threw her arms around Buddy, sobbing uncontrollably. Mr. Thomas, known to be a stern man, knelt down and gently stroked Buddy's head, choking up, "Thank you. Thank you for doing what we couldn't." It seemed like the story would end there, but it didn't. The next day, Portland Animal Control showed up at the hospital. By law, Buddy, an unregistered stray, had to be taken to the city shelter for quarantine and processing. When Emily heard the news, she panicked. Her legs buckled beneath her. The entire Parker family rushed into the hallway face to face with two uniformed officers. The tension was thick as steel wire. "Don't take him!" Emily sobbed, clutching Buddy tightly. "He's not a stray. He's my family." A nurse began crying. A doctor stepped forward and said, "If he saved a life, then the law needs to grow a heart." Mark Harris stepped out next. His face was calm, but his eyes were burning. "Buddy's not going anywhere. We'll file every form if necessary. I'll adopt him myself, but I won't let anyone take him from that child." Faced with the support of the hospital staff, the Parker family, and the entire fire team, the animal control officers quietly backed down and left. That night, Emily fell asleep holding Buddy in her hospital bed. A dog once cast aside by the world was now being held like a hero, like family. Buddy's story was more than a miraculous rescue. It became living proof of one powerful truth: love and loyalty don't need to be human to reach the human heart. 1 week after the terrifying incident at the old warehouse, Portland City Hospital was still in chaos, crowded with reporters, journalists, concerned citizens, and even animal rescue organizations. But for Emily Parker, the little girl who had come back from the edge of death, her world now revolved around one thing: Buddy. The once abandoned Oz who used to scavenge scraps from alleys now sat proudly like a loyal bodyguard beside Emily's hospital bed, eyes locked on anyone who entered the room. No doctor dared to separate him from her. No nurse said, "Dogs aren't allowed here," because everyone knew this little girl was alive because of him. Mark Harris visited Emily every day. The emotion still hadn't faded since the moment he first picked up the bloody little shoe. He could never forget Buddy's eyes in that instant, the look that made him trust his instincts and risk everything. Now, when he entered the room, Emily lit up with a smile. She sat up, hugged Buddy, and said softly but firmly, "If it weren't for him, I don't think I would have woken up." Mark walked over gently, patting Buddy's head with a smile. "You know, the whole city is talking about the miracle Buddy created." That evening, a national news broadcast aired a special report titled "The Story of Buddy, the Four-Legged Hero Who Saved a Missing Girl." Images of the bloody shoe, the stormy journey, the abandoned warehouse, and Buddy lying beside the ambulance stretcher all flashed across screens nationwide. America was stunned. On social media, hashtags like #HeroBuddy and #DogSavesGirl exploded like wildfire. Millions of people shared the story, wept, and sent letters asking to adopt Buddy. But the Parker family already had a clear answer. At a press conference the next day, surrounded by flashing cameras and dozens of reporters, Mr. Thomas Parker held his daughter close and declared, "Buddy is no longer a stray dog. He's a member of our family. He's the reason our daughter is alive." Emily stood beside him, clutching a red fabric leash, Buddy's new collar engraved with a small metal tag that read, "Buddy, my guardian." The entire room rose to their feet in applause. No one saw a muddy, rain-soaked stray anymore. They saw a silent hero, a symbol of loyalty and courage beyond instinct. Soon after, the Portland City Council hosted a special ceremony of honor. For the first time in city history, a stray dog was awarded the Honorary Citizen Medal. Standing proudly on the stage next to a fully recovered Emily, her hair braided neatly, and wearing a white dress she said was for his special day, Buddy stood tall. Mark Harris was invited to speak. Holding the microphone, eyes glistening, he looked at Buddy, then at his fire crew in the front row. "In over 2 decades of saving lives, I've never encountered a story like this. Our hero doesn't speak our language, but he shouted with his actions. No one summoned Buddy yet. He arrived at the right place at the right time and saved the precious life of a child. I believe on that day, God himself sent him to us." The audience stood again, applauding through tears. Emily walked up and wrapped her arms around Buddy's neck under the spotlight. And at that moment, no one ever called him a stray again. Buddy's story was soon turned into children's books, illustrations, and classroom tales. Animal rescue organizations cited his story as living proof that every creature, no matter how small or forgotten, has value and can perform miracles. Buddy wasn't just adopted, he was cherished. He had a home. He slept beside the one he had protected with all his wild instinct and loyal heart. And for Emily, every morning, she woke up looking into those familiar eyes, holding Buddy close, was a reminder that miracles are real.